back on, so we should expect a little influx of new listeners here. A Buffalo shooter invited others to his private Discord diary 30 minutes before the attack. So again, the shooter maintained a detailed diary in a private Discord server but opened it up 30 minutes before the attack. So what is the meaning of this story? Well, if only there had been some active monitoring, they could have stopped Peyton Gendron, which is such a Dungeons and Dragons LARPy type of name. And here you have indication of it being a hoax. You have the professional mourners out there, the professional criers. North Korea has its professional criers. I don't know if we discuss this here. We often discuss the fakery over there. But when, I think it was Kim Jong-il died, you had everybody coming out crying. Here we go. On December 28th, when Kim Jong the second's funeral takes place, the masses will be bawling and howling. People crying on the streets after the death of Kim Jong-il. The idea of these mourners crying to survive. I guess apparently if you don't cry or show grief, they could kill you. Or at least this is the story. Being forced to cry. Look at all these crisis actors. And this is like us. When you see everyone walking around socially distanced with their masks, yeah, you're all crisis actors. It's a good thing Dr. Fauci didn't say that crying is a good way to flush out the COVID. You'd have a bunch of criers. You'd have cry Karens. Why aren't you crying? Why aren't your eyes watering? Since Kim Jong's death was announced Monday, many people marveled at the mourning scenes. North Koreans prostrate, weeping, falling on the ground. It's like the Wuhan flu. They just get overcome with grief and they just fall. But anyway, it says, it's a lamentable characteristic of a totalitarian regime that they demand acts of deceit from those they oppress. A lamentable characteristic of a totalitarian regime. Demanding acts of deceit from those it oppresses. That's incredible, because that's exactly what it did. It forced us to be crisis actors, and those of us who knew what was going on were silenced with a couple of stimmies. It says here it's a matter of survival. Those who hate the regime are obliged to demonstrate patriotism. To fail is to risk persecution. So cry or die, basically. Cry or die. And that's where we are here. I mean, our tyranny is a little softer. But you gotta fake it just to get along. Unbelievable. So anyway, I brought this up because every time you have one of these big psyops, you have people all around ready to cry on camera. They're not as good as the North Korean crisis actors. We gotta hand it to them. Their crisis actors are top-notch Hollywood level criers. The ones we have here in America can't even get tears out. The only time I ever saw a crisis actor cry was Emma Gonzalez when she was on Ellen DeGeneres. And she cried because she got a huge multi-million-dollar check for March for Our Lives. So she couldn't cry for her dead friends, but she cried when she got that big check. Anyway, you got a bunch of criers. People writing names with chalk, wearing shirts, lighting candles, professional mourners. That's what you're looking at. And this is part of a totalitarian regime. This idea that they're going to use these influence operations to take away, disabuse us of the idea we should even own guns. We're looking at mind war. These are operatives. And these guys aren't being forced into it. These are crisis act horrors, which is different from what happens in Korea. According to the Discord server, the suspect created this. Okay, so it was an invite only. Is a personal diary chat log. So now we have a new threat to worry about here. Personal diary chat logs. We can't have private personal diaries anymore. Like what? Winston Smith in 1984? You can't have your own time, your own personal logs that Big Brother can't see because you might be plotting a school shooting. Going through your comments, Cubstar says DLIVE is the devil. DLIVE is sold out to Chicoms. Cubstar says Buffalo Soldiers. Echo Charlie says the White Buffalo Native Prophecy. Battery 79 says a snowflake was crying at me in Discord today. Gatekeeping shill, in my opinion. Yeah, it could easily be. By the way, if you've missed anything, if you showed up late, There will be a replay right after this, and we are going to be live tonight to take calls. Although, if you have anything urgent, you're invited to call in now, 833-311-1984. You know, there's never been a crisis actor whistleblower. Like, I was a crisis actor, Diary of a Crisis Actor. There hasn't been one. And why is that? I've been wondering about this. It's either one of two things. It's like the movie Utopia, where the actors are from another society. They have their own little parallel existence, Crisis Actor Island, so they don't really coexist. Or two, they're paid so well. Like, I've been thinking that maybe crisis acting is the new Hollywood. And that's why you have Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, Marilyn Manson, and others getting into the TV dramas. Like O.J. Simpson did. He figured it out. O.J. Simpson is one of the biggest stars alive today. And what was his starring role? The thing in the court. That was it. That was it. Does it make a difference if it's on court TV or the big screen? No, it doesn't. It does not make a lick of difference because you're talking about captivating attention. You're the creation of an icon. This is idol worship. All right, so the Buffalo shooter live streamed the shooting in Twitch, and he spent time on 4chan, infamous with racism, misogyny, and extremism. So on the topic of racism, misogyny, and extremism, you know, these are things that are always used to describe the far right. But the far left is, I would say, the party of eugenics. The far left is the party of institutional racism. I mean, the Democrats were behind the black code, the whole segregation, Jim Crow, slavery. Yeah, that was Democrat. So Democrats were eugenicists. As far as misogyny and extremism, I think we can all point to the left for that as well. Climate change is one of the most extreme beliefs you could adopt right now. There's no evidence for it. You're basically a doomsday preacher. Your average greenie today is wearing a shirt that says the world's going to end, or they have a bumper sticker, the world's coming to an end, you must change your ways. Some of them will glue themselves onto planes. You got various movements out there like Extinction Rebellion, where they play dead in dinosaur museums because they believe that the human race is going to go extinct. And they're so mixed up. It's like, wait, what's the problem? You know, what's the problem here? We don't have any evidence to support this. You know, and this is them more or less crisis acting. And so now they've gotten to the point where they're so sensitive about this issue because there's no evidence to support it that they're banning conversations about it. You can't post climate change denial on Pinterest. You can't have ads that suggest that the ocean levels aren't rising or that cow flatulence isn't drowning polar bears. You can't advertise that on Twitter. They don't want your money. Why is that? It's because these ideas are dangerous because they are correct. So anyway, let's move on here. We're going through TechCrunch.com. Now, the people who read TechCrunch.com don't know the news is fake. They generally don't know the shootings are fake. They don't know there's a site war. They don't even know there is such a thing. Unlike mainstream social networks like Discord, 4chan does not do any proactive content moderation and only removes illegal content when required to do so. In Discord chat logs reviewed by TechCrunch, the shooter notes that he, quote, only really turned racist after encountering white supremacist ideas on 4chan. So the idea here is that, like you can catch a virus, you can catch a mind virus. So it's not just that bad ideas are self-discrediting. No, if you're exposed to bad ideas, you become that idea. It becomes a part of you. This is the theory of memetics as an analog to genetics, and the idea that you just catch ideas, that they gestate, they cross-pollinate. These ideas aren't things that you carefully consider and filter out. No, they assume you have no critical thinking. This entire idea of censoring on our behalf, this actually correlates to the vax concept. It correlates to the concept of the Second Amendment. It has to do with this. It has to do with self-defense. Can you be your own filter mentally? Can you be reliant on your own immune system? Can you defend your own home? Because this would require, of course, free speech, guns, and a functioning immune system. They want you to say, no, the government has to inject an immune system. The government has to defend you. You take away your guns. And the government has to censor for you because you have no filter on your mind. So you see the common denominator here, the filter. They want to take over all the filtering your safety mentally, physically, internally, and externally, from physical threats, Second Amendment, and internal threats, the virus, the injectable immune system. They don't want you to be able to defend yourself on any level. That's the agenda. So this goes on to talk about how Discord is the new devil. And the name Discord sounds ominous to people who are afraid of disinformation. Like Reddit, most of Discord's hands-on moderation comes from community moderators within their chat rooms. They rely on human moderators, more or less. Now, they started using this automated content scanner, where if you post a dank meme, more likely it'll, like Twitter does, it'll block it. If you post anything that looks even suggestive, it'll block it. So they have already kind of instituted some degree of censorship. But again, this is all predicated on the idea that you can't censor your own thoughts, or rather filter your own thoughts. So they want to filter for you. New York AG opens probe into social media platforms that Buffalo shooter was active on. So where did he catch this? And you can see the parallel here again. It went from the Quran radicals and the radical mosques and the radical clerics and contact tracing. This is what the Patriot Act was for. You got to figure out, where did he get these ideas? Trace the radical ideas to its source. When did this guy go to Yemen and get radicalized and bring it back and radicalize this guy? That was the whole story post 9/11. And Guantanamo is where you quarantine him, and then of course, the whole thing has been refurbished. But this time, the threat is local. And this all ties into 9/11 being represented in the new Batman movie as 11/6, kind of an inversion there, where the Patriots rise up because of Q, who's kind of the OBL. He's the radical that incites them, and they attack Election Day, and they flood it. But anyway, this is all stuff that we expected, and they're blaming the platforms, the radicalizing platforms, not the shooter himself. So he's just the suicide bomber. He's just an incel suicide bomber fighting the great Satan, but they have to trace it now. New York Attorney General has opened an investigation into the companies, as though they're the ones to blame. Of course, they made him 18 to correlate with Kyle Rittenhouse. They had him drive 3 hours. Again, Rittenhouse connection. Going through your comments. Mr. Pride says, on lunch at work, catching the stream. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're going to be doing things earlier in the day and in the evenings. Sometimes earlier, sometimes this time. Just go to infiniteplainsociety.com for all of the links. And if you've missed anything, because the gremlins sabotaged us this morning, it will be replaying right after. And you can also find us on all kinds of live streaming platforms besides YouTube and DLive, and also you can find us on all the podcasting platforms. If you search Infinite Plane, you don't even have to put radio. Just search Infinite Plane. You'll find us on iHeartRadio with the latest updates. Okay, so there's an investigation that will look into Discord, 8chan, 4chan, and Twitch. Now I have some insights into 8chan. And this all does tie into Q, because Q made his appearance on 4chan and 8chan. And these are the sites that were targeted after the Christchurch. And when this thing happened, I said this is an American Christchurch, and that's exactly what it has turned out to be. In fact, I would say that Brenton Tarrant, the Christchurch shooter, and this shooter both need to get refunds on their GoPro lenses, because they're equally terrible, unwatchable, way too pixelated. And this reminds me, there's something else. You know how I'd said that there's a clear case here for plagiarism, that perhaps Brenton Tarrant needs to see a good copyright lawyer? Well, listen to this. This just came out. Using a plagiarism detecting software at Kylie Felher, we determined that 28% of the manifesto from the Buffalo shooter is plagiarized. So 28% of it was plagiarized from Christchurch. I called it, without even reading the whole thing, skimming it. I mean, it's really toxic if you look at the visuals, the art. I just listened to it on my text to speech reader. And I was like, this sounds like Brenton Tarrant. Well, if you go to Brenton Tarrant, you'll find that probably 33% of his is plagiarized from Anders Breivik. And Anders Breivik is probably 33% plagiarized from the Unabomber. I mean, you can trace these things back. It's because they're all coming from the same place, the FBI. But if Brenton Tarrant needs a copyright lawyer, he should be able to get one. That's collectible there. So I've been watching Inside Job, by the way. And Inside Job is this series on Netflix, which basically means it's telling you the future literally, specifically. It's basically a scrying mirror. So episode 6 has Jeff Bezos being killed by a kraken on his mega yacht. That's about to happen. But I was looking at the whole series, start to finish, because somebody recommended it. And episode 2 has this place where they're cloning all the Death Makers. So they can bring back Tupac. They can bring back JFK. They just got to decide when. These things are all there ready to be activated, according to this TV show. So here's one of the an episode where you have JFK Senior, or Q. Yes, if you didn't know, the Kool-Aid drinkers think that behind all these mysterious tweets and posts is a guy named John F. Kennedy. Q plus is Trump, R is Junior. It's insane. It's literally insane, but Netflix is covering it, and this should tell you something. And there was an episode several years ago, like in 2018, of the Justice League and the Fatal Five or something. It was like Batman and a few others, where the bad guy was a conspiracy theorist who took a newsroom hostage. And he said, I'm not going to let you go until you admit the JFK shooting was a hoax. I'm like, wow, that's pretty specific. Continuing. Yeah, the Oracle at Netflix. So here's another one. Episode 2. Same one. So yesterday I was talking about how Russia was discussing how they could nuke Finland. And I believe they said it would take 200 seconds, but it's on the news out there. So they're getting the public acclimated to the idea that they're all going to die, that Satan 2 is going to come down and kill them. So they're actually showing them. This is what it's going to look like when the missile comes down. This is how long you have. A Russian TV host explains how UK could be attacked in seconds. But one of the places they reference hitting is Finland. And I thought, what would that look like if Finland gets nuked? Finland and Sweden to join NATO despite Russia's threat. Russia deploys nukes to border with Finland. Russia threatens to nuke Britain and Finland in seconds. So here's where it gets interesting, and it ties into Inside Job, which again, Inside Job is a reference to 9/11. It was Bill Hicks's slogan, 9/11 was an inside job. So for Inside Job to have the Kraken killing Bezos on his yacht, very significant. Anyway, here's a short clip here. About Russia's deploying nuke missiles to Finland border. Now it's just a video of somebody who sees these things, but the story's out there. And here's where it ties in to Inside Job. Season 1, Episode 2, you have this half-dolphin general character who says, Finland has been pretty full of themselves lately. So they're trying to decide where to launch their new missile, which I think they called it the Reagan. So the Reagan missile is going to hit Finland, and this is in Inside Job. So they're on the map. Also, I want to point this out. There aren't any false flag attacks. Like, I don't believe in mantras. This isn't a cult. I don't think that people should have to repeat things. I think they can assess ideas. But if we did have a mantra, like if there was a big group of us, a gathering, and we were to repeat something, it would be, there aren't any false flag attacks. False flag theory is a government misinformation tactic to hide hoaxes and psychological operations. And it's true. There haven't been any false flag attacks. Prove one. Prove one. Because we're talking about psychological operations and hoaxes. For it to be a false flag, you have to prove somebody actually died. So show me where somebody actually died in a terror attack. Show me where somebody actually died in a shooting. Show me actual COVID deaths. Because until you do, you have the same burden that the mass media does. You got to provide the evidence. There's no blood in Buffalo. So what are you doing calling it a false flag? And that's what Alex Jones and others do, and I predicted they would. The people who call these things false flags are either not up to speed or they're agents, one or the other. So who do you want to follow? An agent or somebody who's not up to speed? And why would you follow somebody who's not up to speed? It's already mid 2022 and people are still saying false flag. That was a government misinformation line put there decades ago to hide hoaxes, to hide the stage. And it's been very successful. So Alex Jones comes out there, his face red as a tomato, stressed out. It was a false flag. Looking more and more like Eric Cartman every day. It's like, what do you mean false flag? There was no blood. Nobody died. Nobody died. I mean, it's literally a hoax. And that's a big deal because if nobody died, then it proves that the mass media on all sides of the spectrum, left, right, all the media, alt media even, collude in mass deception. Or you can overlook that and pretend like this was an isolated incident goaded by the FBI. But that's not true. By the way, yesterday, Jake the A-hole came into the chat room and he said the instant I mentioned Alex Jones, he just uploaded a new video, which is a short clip, Infowars 2.0 featuring primetime Alex Stein 99. I didn't want to play the whole thing. It's not that long, but I'm going to play a little bit of this thing and I'll give you the link so you can watch the whole thing in its entirety on your own. And stay to the end. No spoilers, but the last 3 seconds is like the best.
Welcome back to Infowars, folks. These globalists who rule over us, they actually have no real power. You see, they are members of an occult, and they have interdimensional homosexual sex with each other, ritualistically. And we don't condone that sort of behavior around here.
All right, so this is Alex, and then I think Stein makes a appearance. I'm putting a link in the chat, and I'll put the link on my Minds.com account. It says Infowars 2.0 featuring primetime Alex Stein 99.
And I tried all of Alex Jones' male vitality pills, and let me tell you what, it made my nipples harder than Chinese arithmetic.
All right, so there you have it. Infowars 2.0 featuring primetime Alex Stein 99. Travis Cloud says he's nailing the voices. Yeah, actually, it can be said that Jake Gibson does a better Richie from Boston than Richie from Boston. Like, Richie might as well just retire. Alex Jones, yeah, that was very Alex Jonesy. That was as close as you could get. Let me play. I hate spoilers, but I'm going to play like the last 10 seconds because this is the best Alex Jones I've ever heard. Better than Alex Jones. Better than Bill Hicks pretending to be Alex Jones. Like, this is pretty good.
The future's gonna be bleak, folks, if you don't wake up, step up, and fight back with nonviolence against these damn globalists. Welcome back to Info.
So what do you think? Nailed it? Anyway, I put a link in the chat. Didn't mean to get too sidetracked. We've been talking about the Batman film that the Riddler, who's Q, with his question mark, a very intimidating symbol, the question mark. When are they going to ban those things? You know, it's kind of notable here that the question mark is in the crosshairs. If you look at the character, the emblem. And they seem to have based him on the Zodiac killer, just stylistically. Very Zodiac. But anyway, you have the question mark in the crosshairs because they're actually aiming at the questioners. The people who don't trust authority or don't trust their politicians, who think for themselves, who don't need the government to censor their thoughts for them, who rely on their own immune systems, very, very dangerous, who want to defend their own homes, terrorists. But the main thing about them is the weapon of choice is the Tucker. And then you have the Tucker Carlson scapegoat for the Riddler-inspired shooter out there in Buffalo. It's very, very neat how they tie all these stories together. T-Dog135 said, I watched an old IPS show yesterday and Jake called into it. It was funny. Echo Charlie says, Jake, the orifice was so cringe, Tim. Well, cringertainment's a thing. You know, I started using the term conspiratainment because the media is saying conspiracists. You know, conspiracist. It's like I thought I was a theorist. It makes it sound like I should be wearing a white smock, like I'm doing science. Yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist. But no, now I'm a conspiracist. So I'm like, screw that. We're doing conspiratainment. So this is more art, philosophy, and film criticism than anything. But then I find that cringertainment is actually a thing too. So, and it's big, and it's blowing up. Maybe it's because of the TikTokification of the American mind, or it's a global infection, isn't it? All right, let me go through the headlines some more. We have a few things. Yes, the MAGA formula is getting darker and darker. Dark MAGA rising. Dirty bomb drills run in Austin. So if you live in Austin, you might expect some low-flying aircraft to drop off some dirty bombs, so a radiological attack. And all that means is they lock down a city, they tell you to put on a mask, and they do decontamination. It's just another variant. It's another variant of the pandemic response, but with other concerns like wind and how far is the fallout going to carry. But again, this is being staged. It's a drill all throughout Austin. And why? It's because they believe there are known radiological terror cells entering the U.S. So they know there are terror cells coming, so they're doing drills in advance. Does anybody see any sense in that? I certainly don't. It seems to me, you know, par for the course. They're going to do something, so they got to get all their assets in place, their agents in place, their PSYOP entertainment complex needs to be staged ahead of these simulated attacks that the public will believe are real because the public lives in a simulation. Echo Charlie says Jake is an okay hole. Tony says Alex Stein will be the next Alex Jones replacement when he gets taken down for spreading misinfo. Yeah, I've said it, Alex Stein. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I call him Alex Stein because he's never going to go away. Obviously, although he looks like a Alex Stein 99, looks like a 99-cent store, Tucker Carlson. But no, I think he's actually going to be an Alex Jones replacement. And if you look at the Bill Hicks script he gave to producer Kevin Booth, the script is for a Rush Limbaugh-like character who gets taken out by one of his own listeners down the road. So I think Alex Jones gets taken out. And then the QAnon Owen Schroyer and Alex Stein should be sufficient to keep that thing going forward, to continue to carry the tip of the spear. That's what they call it, right? The tip of the spear. The tip of the QAnon shaman spear. You know, I was looking at that video put out from Fort Bragg yesterday, and this is the one where they talk about the world being a stage. And this is from Fort Bragg. It's their Psywar department. And they say, we are everywhere. We are the tip of the spear. All the world's a stage. Come join us. If you haven't seen it, the video is called Masters of Influence. It's the 4th Psychological Operations Group. And they put out this promo video about the world stage, how they're everywhere, and they are the tip of the spear, among other things. If you haven't seen it, we covered it yesterday, but it's out of Fort Bragg. Now, this channel is not anti-inoculation. In fact, Infinite Plane Radio is Mind War inoculation. Ask anyone here. No negative side effects. All the side effects are positive. Spirit Jordan says Jake looks like a young De Niro. And talking about Jake Gibson. Hey, look, he's a miracle. The fact he's still alive. Jake Gibson went out to Sacramento and had people line up to cough in his face. And this was at the height of the pandemic panic. And he's still with us, which is something of a medical anomaly, right? I'm surprised the WHO hasn't taken him in to just check him out. How did he survive? Oh, let's play this. This is the best evil villain laugh ever. This is Elon Musk when he finds out that 20% of Twitter is fake, half of Biden's followers are fake. That's why I called this live stream Bot World Order. Because we really are in a world populated by mostly mindless repetition, mindless redundancies. Whether they are CGI, AI, or people, doesn't make a difference. But anyway, this is Elon Musk confronting the question of the fakery behind the numbers that Twitter puts out there.
That you see making comments on a daily basis on Twitter is above 95%. That is what they're claiming. Does anyone have that experience?
All right, there you have it. Evil villain laugh from your savior, Pope Elon. Wild. Sometimes they let the masks slip, don't they? Rare, but they do. All right, let's see here. This is barely worth mentioning. There was a guy who gave two different reports at the Buffalo shooting with two different names, and people spread this saying he was a crisis actor, and it later got debunked. The news media got it wrong. You'll find, oftentimes after events, you'll have false positives for the thing being a hoax intentionally leaked to steal search engine results. So if you're searching for crisis actors following Buffalo, you'll find false leads like this that have been pre-debunked for you. Just simply ignore them. The facts are on our side. That's just another thing to expect. So free speech is under attack, but we are completely impervious to it. I think we have pretty good cover. And even though we have to deal with small, minor technical errors here and there, technical glitches, we do have a consistent output. We're constantly researching, constantly finding new things. And I happen to think that this Riddler with the Tucker as a weapon is a pretty significant find. I think it's a pretty big deal. Very, very consistent with what we've seen thus far. Okay, I have a few voicemails I want to play.
Hey, Tim. I really appreciate you letting me call in to speak with you tonight. It was cool, man. Hey, man, the one thing I really do want to say to you is I love your content. It's great, man. You are very observant about what's going on in this place.
Oh yeah, that was the caller, Jerry, from the other night. We had a long talk. Yes, absolutely. First time caller. We have a lot of people who have never called in. And so if you haven't, you're welcome to leave messages. You can also hit me up on Skype. Look up Infinite Plane Radio. Another voicemail.
Hey, Tim. I was curious if you ever thought about submitting a Freedom of Information Act or law to these cities and requesting crime scene photos. If you want to look into that, let me know.
Yeah, I do want to look into that. This thing about using the Freedom of Information Act to get crime scene photos, autopsy reports, find out what really happened. Because this is one of their weak spots, and this is why Dr. Carver, the hilariously named, I guess you'd call medical examiner, Dr. Carver, carves up the bodies. He put in some request to block autopsy reports of miners in advance of Sandy Hook. You can imagine why. And someone suggested that there is something like 6 hours released from the 1/6 event, but I don't expect anything out of it. You know, the 1/6 event was a total psyop. Whatever you saw on the inside could have been pre-recorded. But yes, I will look into the Freedom of Information Act.
Hey, Tim, I'm trying to test my video or voice recorder. I called the Buffalo Police Department multiple times trying to figure out the case number for the situation over there at the Tops Market. I talked to Riviera. They transferred me to the lieutenants. Hofstetter and Tomasula. The lieutenants didn't answer, and then the dispatcher wouldn't answer any of my questions. Actually, she answered a few of the questions, but
Fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. So he's actually calling to get case numbers and he's not finding any case numbers. I wonder why that would be. And what we're doing here is investigative reporting. What we're doing is actually deeper than that. I would call it reality investigation or something like that, because what we're doing is actually, it's more philosophical. It's very, I would say, academic. We're not really activists, but we do a great deal of reality testing the claims of liars in high places. Infinite Plane Radio.
Oh, hey, Tim, it's Coyote Smoking Mirror. How are you, sir?
Excellent. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. I don't know if I was hearing a replay, but the call you were talking about how the last election with Biden was obviously fake, right? I mean, obviously a sham. And I was just thinking that that people need to realize that of course all of these elections are selections and they're predetermined but they intentionally made it easy for us the whole world to see how contrived and fake these elections are, such that you were then given a choice: am I going to believe in this or not believe in it? If I'm a Democrat and it went my way, will I forgive it? Or if I'm a Republican, am I going to fight it just this time, but not the last time when we won? But they went out of the way to show us what a fake election it was.
Yeah, I would say that too. That, in other words, they're all fake. It's not like this one was stolen and Trump was a savior. No, he was presented as a savior for one side, but that I think it was blatantly made to look like a theft to incite a great deal of anger on the right. And then to also, I think, yeah, it does allow people on the left to who are either complicit, don't care, or who just don't believe. But yeah, I think this was just creating a schism. I don't think it was like, if only they had caught these mules, it wouldn't have happened. No, I mean, clearly this was written this way.
Now, have you heard about this Dr. David Martin and his group of physicians and attorneys and whatever who have filed another Utah Supreme Court case accusing Fauci and a bunch of others of premeditated terrorism? They've got some website called prosecutenow.com or something. Have you heard about that?
I haven't. They're trying to get Fauci for war crimes or something?
Yeah, they're literally prosecuting them for a conspiracy to commit murder, which is the what I call the Donald Trump warp speed mystery injection. For creating that, they're trying to accuse them of premeditated terrorism. And I noticed that they did not include Donald Trump in the indictment.
Right.
Because if you think about it, Donald Trump is on multiple occasions in public taken full responsibility for the creation of the vaccine. So why didn't they include Trump in the indictment as well? So therefore, we know it's another controlled opposition.
Good call there, because he calls himself the Vax Father. And this was
That's right.
a major dose of cognitive dissonance when he came out in favor of it, because the QAnon wisdom at the time was, this is going to kill us all. So why isn't he being criticized as much as Fauci? If anything, he's more culpable because he's the guy with the power, or was.
That's right. And if you remember, in 2018, Trump signed an executive order, which means him alone, the executive himself, signed an order to create the National Vaccine Task Force, or I think it was called something like the National Pandemic Task Force, something to that effect. But I can find that for you, and give it to you. But essentially, Trump set up the apparatus for the delivery system of the weapon, which is the premeditated terrorism, which is the premeditated murder, which the lawsuit is about. I mean, that's an executive order. It's from Trump himself, signed in his name. And you can find the video of him signing that as well, too. Plus, I can find it on the .gov website as well. So if that's not participation, I don't know what is.
Yeah, they're so disconnected from this. And do you remember that when Trump used to read that poem about the snake? And it was always a reference to illegal
Yeah,
immigrants.
yeah,
He'd be like, "You knew I was
yeah,
a
yeah,
snake when
yeah.
you took me in." When he first took that Vax Father title in Operation Warp Speed, I started playing that on my live streams. I was like, "Look, he told you he's the snake. He told you early on. He loved reading that poem." And yeah, I mean, what else can you say? And he's literally there with the needle, the fang of the
And
snake.
don't forget, then there's the whole snake venom conspiracy going on as well. That the vaccine contains snake venom. And have you heard that one yet?
I have that the thing
It's a
I
little old.
they were putting snake venom in the water, and it was to hybridize people with the devil, all kinds of
Yeah,
snake and Satan stuff coming out. But yeah, definitely Trump just totally contradicted everything that they would have expected from him as a savior, and now suddenly he's not on their list of people responsible for this. That's insane.
yeah, it should be the first. Hey, Tim, keep up the good work. Great callers, great Discord chat. I've got to get back to work. Just called on my lunch break, but have a great time, and I'm sure I'll be checking in later.
Awesome, appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. That's Smoke and Mirror. Always excellent information on Twitter and on the phone calls. And yes, we do have the best callers, and we will continue that tradition. We don't censor. We rarely kick people out of Discord servers. I kicked someone, but I let him back in. But it's because he was trying to guilt trip me out of analyzing Buffalo because he said, think about the families of the victims. And I'm like, we're way past the point of being tricked by state criers, by actors. By the way, Infinite Plane Society Discord server is open to all. Just go to patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society. $2 cover charge. Memes are free. And like I said, we'll be back later on today to take calls. There's just so much to go through, and many more things are developing. Everything's happening according to a plan. And like the caller emphasized, there was no chance that Trump was going to be a savior. This thing was an operation to create the impression that it was stolen in order to create what they've created so far. And it's not over yet. It's a midterm election coming up, which means all of the PSYOP actors will be fully employed. I want to emphasize this again. There aren't any false flag attacks. False flag theory is a government misinformation tactic. It's a false explanation. And its use is to hide hoaxes and psychological operations. So if you want to hide the stage, if you want to help the MSM, continue to talk about, quote, false flags without any evidence of any actual deaths. Spirit Jordan says, we might not be back if the asteroid hits today. That's correct. Today's the 19th. There is some talk out there, really over the next week. I've been listening to Jurassic Liars lately, and yesterday, actually this morning, I was listening to one of his videos, and he came across some of the stuff we've been talking about regarding this connection between David Bowie and Elvis. And he added on some things, and he found a number of things in The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is one of the topics that I've been covering. The Man Who Fell to Earth is a film that came out in '76 starring David Bowie. But David Bowie's 1972 prophecy about the Savior turns out to be pointing at Kanye West. This is part of the narrative. It's not even a theory anymore. David Bowie had a prophecy about a Savior to be born in '72, and all signs point to Kanye West as being his successor, filling this particular role on the world stage. Well, this is a continuation of this Man Who Fell to Earth, Black Star, Elvis Presley. And there's a continuity here that we've been exploring. Well, just as Bowie stars in The Man Who Fell to Earth, there's a new show out called The Man Who Fell to Earth. It's a remake of it. But the star of the movie is an actor who has many parallels to Kanye West in his onstage role and his real world age. And it ties into Kanye West, just furthering this connection between Bowie and Kanye. This is one of the things he was covering, and a lot of things came out throughout the course of that particular live stream other points which I'll be bringing up. Let me play a clip here. This is former President George W. Bush, who sounds a lot like Charlie Manson. But here's something he said. I guess it's a gaffe, a Bush-ism. George W. Bush says, quote, let me play it.
Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man.
Here it is. The decision of one man
To launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq.
The decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq.
Of Ukraine.
Of Ukraine. So what is that? Was this teleprompted? Is this a joke? This is comedy, whatever it is.
And the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. Of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway.
All right, anyway. Yeah, that was probably scripted. Anyway, that's W there. Okay, so here's a couple of things that were brought up. Here it is. It's called Jurassic Liars, Elvis Seattle 611, Trump 84. That was the one I was going through today. And I'll be perusing this video and I'll be taking a couple of points out of it just to connect some more dots. It's one of the reasons why I recommend his channel, is he has put together many things and has found many clues. But here, he shows that like Bowie and like Kanye, Elvis Presley he's the original Starman, man who fell to earth. Of course, Starman, anagram for Mr. Satan. And he's also noted the Seattle connection with the man who fell to earth. But there was something in particular here that I thought really stood out as interesting. Turns out that Elvis Presley's Hollywood star is literally a black star. And it's the only one like it. And I believe it's because they had to move it. Let me just play a short clip here. There's quite a lot here. This is very information dense.
We also had the black star, okay, because it's in reference to Elvis. Do you understand? Elvis is the black star. And you see this 5-pointed star? This is on Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's the only black star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And it has no name. And do you know whose star this is? The black star? So Elvis's original star looked like this, but it was changed into the black star. And they'll tell you that it was moved for wear and tear reasons.
So here you have it. So the black star significance again connects with Bowie and this bigger prophecy about the man who fell to earth. All kinds of interesting things here. But Bowie's final album was released on Elvis's birthday, called Black Star. Elvis had a song called Black Star. Lyrics were about, when you see a black star, you're about to die. Well, Bowie releases the album on Elvis's birthday, which is also his own birthday, January 8th, and 2 days later, he dies. The symbol of the black star, the man who fell to earth, ties into all kinds of other storylines, narrative threads here. And Jurassic Liars covers these things unlike anyone else, and has done quite a lot with the numerology and the analysis of names. And this is where it gets really intriguing, is the names and the connections between the dates. And it all makes sense when you get into the reality of what we're looking at being a cult obsessed with what we would term magic or astrology, astrotheology. And he even came across something else about this so-called wow signal. The wow signal, August 15th, 1977. And this was a narrowband radio signal that supposedly gave people some kind of incentive to start looking for aliens. So this is just another part of the video he covered, but it took place in 77, the year Elvis died, and the year Kanye was born, and also the guy who plays the man who fell to earth in the new movie. And also 77 was the Summer of Sam, when we had that blackout on 42nd Street. Summer of Sam, he's taking orders. Of course, Mr. 44, taking orders from a dog, which I think is a reference to Pluto. And Kanye West presenting himself on the day of Pluto return. Again, Pluto has a dog association thanks to Disney. And also Hades. Hades guarding the gates with his dogs. But anyway, all of this connects in this video, what we've been talking about, that there is a Elvis to Bowie to Kanye connection, and that they're carrying the same archetype. They're sending the same messages. And it's all about the alien savior narrative, which is still oncoming. I don't think it's over yet, the big picture. And by the way, expect a bad sequel. We've been hearing a lot about COVID 2, Pandemic 2, Satan 2. Listen to this. This is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 3.
What do you recommend, Doctor?
To keep it from spreading, full lockdown.
Computer, open a channel, ship-wide.
Attention all crew members. We are initiating level 5 lockdown protocol effective immediately.
So Star Trek,
ship-wide.
level 5 lockdown
Attention
protocol.
all crew members. We are initiating level 5 lockdown protocol effective immediately. All non-essential personnel will be confined to quarters until further notice.
All non-essential personnel will be confined in their quarters until further notice. So if you want to be essential, you have to get an IPS press pass, infiniteplainsociety.com. I'll list them there today. Press passes will make sure that you are essential, because members of the media, weirdly, are considered to be essential. And we are media. If you're calling in, if you're reporting, if you're in the think tank, if you're posting comments, if you're contributing, if you're adding pieces to this million-piece puzzle, then you are media. Dogface Pony Soldier 19 says Elvis was a moonchild. Fascinating. Wouldn't surprise me. I think Kanye West is also a moonchild. I think Donald Trump was a moonchild. I'll put that in my notes here. Tonight, we'll talk about the moonchild, what that is, because it's very significant too. It's very significant considering the new movie Doctor Strange has the Scarlet Witch. And the Scarlet Witch correlates to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the mother of the moonchild in the Babylon working with Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley. They didn't conceive a physical child, but supposedly they invoked the spirit of the Antichrist who took up residence in Donald Trump while he was still in the womb. Let me play this clip. This is Ghosts in the Machine from the 4th PSYOP group.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering, do or die.
Born from the ashes, and you have images of ghosts. You'll find us in the shadows at the tip of the spear. All the world's a stage. And I believe he says, we are everywhere.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
That's Ghosts in the Machine, 4th PSYOP group, All the World's a Stage. This makes me think that Owen Schroyer is probably part of the 4th PSYOP group. We put on the QAnon shaman costume and ran with the spear into the Capitol to sabotage and really just bring about chaos so they can instill more order. We know the formula. This is COVID Cooties by Symbia. I'll return it to 24/7. Sign up for the newsletter and the text alerts so you don't miss the live stream tonight. We will take calls on all these topics and more.
I'm so COVID cute, I think I've got a real bad coop. I need to get out of the house instead of doing what you tell me to. I caught the COVID cooties, now my life is like a movie. screen.
Extinction in a book. Bone Wars. George Jensen. Doomsday. Jim Henson. Mongol. Solar system. There's a reborn.
Alright, thank you for joining. This is Infinite Plane Radio for May 18th, 2022. It's 4:45 p.m. Mountain Time. I sent out live stream notifications. You're hearing Dinosaurs in Space, Chief Crow